Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Lindsay Carter. I'm the director of the McGovern-Dole program and will be moderating this session celebrating 20 years of the McGovern-Dole International Food for Education and Child Nutrition program. Can I just confirm that I can be heard and seen? Excellent. Well, in the interest of time and as people join, I'd like to just welcome you to this event, celebrating 20 years, closing out the end of an excellent week on the School Meals Coalition. I'd like to first hand over, I have a number of speakers today, but would like to first hand over to our USDA Foreign Agricultural Service Associate Administrator, Brooke Jamison. Brooke has spent the past 23 years working on agriculture and international development policy. And as a congressional staffer, Brooke handled agriculture and trade policy for 2 senators and a member of Congress, as well as managing a legislative team, the Senator Kristen Gillibrand of New York, for over 14 years. She's also coordinated USAID projects in numerous countries and oversees a vast portfolio within the United States Department of Agriculture's Foreign Agricultural Service. So Brooke, if I could hand over to you, please.
Of course, thank you, Lindsay. I am very excited to join everybody here today in our celebration of the 20th anniversary of the McGovern-Dole Food for Education and Child Nutrition Program. The U.S. Department of Agriculture is proud to be the largest international school feeding donor. And so the McGovern-Dole program is our flagship program to reduce food insecurity, improve nutrition, and increase education levels for many of the world's most vulnerable children and their families, and assist low-income, food deficit countries with establishing successful and sustainable school meal programs. The McGovern-Dole program is named in honor of Ambassador and former U.S. Senator George McGovern and former Senator Robert Dole in recognition of their tireless efforts to eradicate childhood hunger. During these last 2 decades, the program has benefited more than 31 million children and families in 48 countries, providing more than 5.5 billion school meals and supporting holistic school meal programs through U.S. donated commodities, technical and financial support. In 2018, the McGovern-Dole program was amended to allow for up to 10% of our annual funding to be used for local and regional procurement, supporting improved nutrition and local smallholder farmers. During the pandemic, the McGovern-Dole program pivoted to doing take-home rations after schools were closed due to COVID-19. But this meant that in 30 countries, 3.6 million children and their families were still able to rely on the program for important nutrition. This year, the McGovern-Dole program is serving 2.1 million school-age children through 55 active school feeding projects in 31 countries. More than 14,000 schools received a variety of interventions to improve education and school meals quality for primary and pre-primary school children. We also just awarded $220 million to 8 new school feeding projects to benefit more than 1 million children across 2,200 schools in Burundi, Cambodia, the Gambia, Lesotho, Madagascar, Mauritania, Tanzania, and Timor-Leste. This commitment includes direct financial support for project activities and over 41,000 metric tons of nutrient-rich U.S.-grown commodities to be donated to the projects for school meals, including fortified rice, vegetable oil, corn, soy blend plus, lentils, and beans. The award also included nearly $24 million to purchase 13,000 tons of locally or regionally produced commodities, supporting producers and supply chains in the target countries, improving the nutritional diversity of school meals and contributing to the long-term sustainability of school feeding programs. As a member of the School Meals Coalition, nutrition, health, and education for every child, the U.S. government, through McGovern-Dole, can offer a model for multi-year, multi-sectoral funding to other donors working in the school meals and education space. This program follows a holistic capacity strengthening approach, building upon foundation of national ownership. McGovern-Dole works through multi-sectoral projects that bolster the capacity of national and local actors, addressing a full array of activities to support learning, including instruction, school meals, nutrition education, agricultural support for local and regional procurement, infrastructure improvements, community outreach, and institutional strengthening. McGovern-Dole has a remarkable track record helping countries transition to national ownership, and sustainable national financing is an important part of this program. With each project being funded for 4 to 5 year cycles, we are able to make it real investments, test strategies, collect data, and prove success. The US government prioritizes school meals because they are among the most successful societal protection measures to support food security and nutrition for vulnerable children and their families everywhere. In the face of a multitude of global challenges, McGovern-Dole remains a key component of the US government's global food assistance package, promoting human capital development, building resilience, and addressing rising food insecurity and malnutrition stemming from conflict, pandemic, climate change, and natural disasters. We are proud that McGovern-Dole has been a lead contributor to this effort for the past 20 years and look forward to continuing to support this bright future. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I turn it back to Lindsay.
Thank you so much, Brooke, for those opening remarks. Very much appreciated. All right, we will next be sharing a video presentation that was put together by the McGovern-Dole, by the US Department of Agriculture. If you can please just stand by while I make my way over to this video.
For 20 years, the United States Department of Agriculture's McGovern-Dole International Food for Education and Child Nutrition Program has changed the lives of children and their communities across the globe by ensuring that children have access to the nutrition they need to focus on learning. Through the generosity of the American people and the expertise of American farmers, the Foreign Agricultural Service at the United States Department of Agriculture has sent more than 1.3 million tons of food to those in need across the world. Countries, and more than 31 million people have benefited from the social safety nets that are strengthened by this incredible program. During this time, USDA has demonstrated a valuable lesson. A lunch can change a life. Ambassador George McGovern's career in public service began with a free lunch. He enlisted in the Army over the Navy because the Army recruiter gave him a free meal ticket. After distinguished service in World War II, Ambassador McGovern became a U.S. Congressman and Senator, representing his home state of South Dakota. He later served as the U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Food and Agricultural Agencies in Rome. Ambassador McGovern was a fighter for American farmers, and he wished his own legacy to reflect his efforts to end hunger around the world. Senator Bob Dole was also a decorated American hero who earned 2 Purple Hearts and a Bronze Star for his bravery and sacrifice in combat. He served as a congressman and senator representing his home state of Kansas. Alongside then-Senator McGovern, Senator Dole improved and expanded USDA's food stamp, school lunch, and women, infants, and children nutrition programs. When focused on international hunger, Senator Dole emphasized the importance of programs that would not just hand out commodities, but, in his own words, coordinate and accelerate the export of America's most valuable product, our farm know-how and show-how.
I've never known a piece of legislation amounted to very much that was not bipartisan.
We actually had children suffering from hunger.
These men from opposite sides of the aisle came together to not only improve food security programs for Americans, but to expand the generosity of Americans to those who need it most, vulnerable children around the world. Senator Dole and Ambassador McGovern's legacy now lives on through the McGovern-Dole International Food for Education and Child Nutrition Program, which in 2022 is celebrating its 20th year of changing lives around the world through school meals. The program helps support education, child development, and food security in low-income, food-deficit countries. Through the donation of U.S. agricultural commodities, plus financial and technical assistance, the program supports school feeding and maternal and child nutrition projects. In addition to providing school meals, McGovern-Dole projects implement a variety of complementary activities to support school communities, such as teacher training, installing or improving safe water and sanitation facilities, strengthening parent-teacher associations, and many other activities that support child development and keep children safe, healthy, and learning at school. Independent evaluations have shown that McGovern-Dole projects achieve results, including improving literacy rates for school-age children, reducing feelings of hunger, and building the capacity of school, community, and national stakeholders to implement locally owned school feeding programs. Through the promise of a quality meal at schools, McGovern-Dole projects are effective at increasing school enrollment and attendance, especially for girls. For many children around the world supported through the McGovern-Dole program, the meal that they receive at school may be the only reliable meal that they receive in a day. U.S. farmers and producers contribute to the success of the program by supplying U.S. commodities that create nutritious, culturally appropriate school meals. Alongside U.S.-produced agricultural commodities, McGovern-Dole projects also support the addition of local ingredients, such as fresh vegetables and animal protein, that further improve school meals and support local producers. The generosity of American farmers is matched by the expertise of McGovern-Dole's implementers, who design projects built on local knowledge coupled with best practices in school feeding, literacy, and nutrition.
The McGovern-Dole program has been very impactful. First of all, it addresses the food security needs and nutritional needs of many of the children we serve. It also provides the opportunity for education to students that wouldn't have that opportunity otherwise. And then it also brings in families and the community to support the initiative. And in Guatemala, the women came and helped prepare the food. The community joined in with that. So this has been a stimulus in many areas of the world.
McGovern-Dole projects strengthen communities by bringing stakeholders from the local education, agriculture, and health sectors together in a way that builds on schools as centers of the community.
McGovern-Dole's school feeding programs are life-changing for the children, their families, and even the communities. They give the poorest families a powerful incentive to keep their children, especially their daughters, in school. And by sourcing foods from smallholders, they help farmers earn a living and boost local economies. In Rwanda, the reading comprehension of children in the program has shot up from 49% to 78%. And regular school attendance, it's increased now to 92%.
USDA remains committed to strengthening Ambassador McGovern and Senator Dole's legacy by sharing American farmers' productivity and generosity with the world. As the McGovern-Dole Food for Education and Child Nutrition Program evolves to meet the needs of tomorrow, children and their communities will continue to benefit from the life-changing potential of a school lunch. This has been a presentation of the USDA's Foreign Agricultural Service and partners.
Excellent. Thank you. So please just bear with us a moment while we get back to our presentation. For our next presenter, it is my pleasure to introduce Erica Beltran, who is one of our senior McGovern-Dole International Program Specialists and has been covers a portfolio in Latin America, Asia, and Africa over the past 2 decades with the McGovern-Dole program, in addition to extensive experience with McGovern-Dole. Erica has previously worked on our other USDA food assistance programs, including Food for Progress and 416B. Erica joined the Foreign Agricultural Service in 2003. And she is originally from El Salvador, but moved to the US at the age of 12 and is the youngest of 7 children. She lives in Maryland and is a proud mom of 2 young boys. And I welcome her today to present more on the evolution of the McGovern-Dole program, the history, and also some information for those who may be interested in how we maintain our programming in accordance with our legislation. So I'll just share my screen for the presentation and then hand over to you, Erica.
Thank you. Thank you, Lindsay. I'm glad to be here. As Lindsay mentioned, I've been around McGovern-Dole for a long time. And so I am very passionate about the program, and I would like to share some of the history overview and how it has evolved throughout the 2 decades that it's been going on. So first of all, under our legislation, we have the McGovern-Dole legislation. That legislation established that the secretary may establish a program known as the McGovern-Dole International Food for Education and Child Nutrition Program, in that it also required that procurement of agricultural commodities and provision of financial and technical assistance to carry out, number 1, programs with preschool and school food for education programs in foreign countries, in an effort to improve food security, reduce the incidence of hunger, and improve literacy in primary education, with a special emphasis on girls. Our number 2 requirement is that we also focus on maternal, infant, and child nutrition programs for pregnant women, nursing mothers, infants, and children who are 5 years of age or younger. As you can see here in our picture, we have our Senator McGovern-Dole, and as mentioned earlier, these 2 men were the founders of this program. So next slide, please. Now, just a little bit of an overview of how McGovern-Dole became alive. So it was officially authorized in 2002. And currently we have around $220 million in annual appropriations. So every year Congress allocates a portion of money for the McGovern-Dole program. And in this past years, we've seen a little bit of an increase in that amount. So right now we stand at $220 million. Again, this program is really it's tied to the use of U.S. commodities. So when doing a program, these programs have to have U.S. commodities being utilized. So we send those commodities overseas to be made into meals. As mentioned earlier, also, we now have a 10% requirement that goes towards purchase of local commodities. This is really an effort to create a sustainability mindset in those countries, and it includes, the community, the farmers, and many policy makers as well. So it's really a tool to get that sustainability going in those countries. Next, please. Here, I just want to provide you with an overview. Again, we're talking about this 2 decades that McGovern-Dole has been around, and just kind of show you the great impact that we've made around the world. As you can see, we're spread around the world. And so we have footprint in different parts of the world. And so since 2003, we've reached 31 million direct beneficiaries. And I just kind of want to emphasize, that this is just direct beneficiaries. We have many indirect beneficiaries, communities, parents, government officials and members. And so it is, more than 31 million people that we are actually touching through this program. In the 20 years, we've reached around 48 countries and served over 5.5 billion school meals. And we've sent over 1.3 million metric tons of US commodities overseas. Now, coming to today, we are currently active in 55 active McGovern-Dole projects in 34 countries. And we have an approximate value of $1.3 billion that we're investing in this program. So quite the rich reach there for around the world and what we're sending overseas. Thank you. Next slide, please. Now, just to, as Lindsay mentioned, just giving you an overview as those that may be interested in knowing how to apply or how the McGovern-Dole program really works. So there is a cycle that we go through. It's a yearly cycle. And so this wheel gives you a picture of what we go through. And so this is what we call the Notice of Funding Opportunity Cycle Wheel. So in the government, in the federal government, we start our year in September, what we call our fiscal year. And so this is when we begin our process in the McGovern-Dole branch. So we start by looking at the entire world and applying criteria to select priority countries to be put on the list for the upcoming year. So step one is priority country selection, and that's around October, December time. And then after that, once we've selected our countries, and this is a rigorous process that we go through, we have consultations with different stakeholders and our partners in country or post, and also with our leadership and internally. And once those have been selected, then we come up with what is called the Notice of Funding Opportunity, and we release that to the public. And this is an opportunity for interested organizations to apply for the program. And so there is a period of time that this is out in the street, and organizations can apply. So they submit their proposals. Step 3, which usually happens between April and June, it's when we receive the proposals and we are reviewing proposals and making selections. Again, all these steps go through a rigorous process internally, and also with the collaboration of other US government agencies and our posts overseas. Once we have reviewed the proposals and selected, then we go to a decision memo that goes up to our leadership, and then we get the stamp of approval on those. And finally, we go through the negotiation process, and that ends our cycle, and it also ends at the end of our fiscal year in September. Thank you. And here, I just want to talk to you a little bit about our implementers or partners. So McGovern-Dole is an integrated program, and it could not be so impactful. And if we didn't have good implementers and partners alongside with us working on this program to make it as great as it is. So we work with different private volunteer organizations, and we also work with US government partners, as I mentioned, and that can include USAID and others. And it also, we work with the United Nations organizations, and the entities such as, the private volunteer organizations. We also work with World Food Program. Those are the ones that are really in the ground implementing our program, building on the sustainability and the lasting impact of the activities that we want, so that, this can take a local ownership once the funding is over. So just to give you a little bit of an overview of how that works. Next, please. Here's a map of, what as mentioned throughout this presentation, the program, the McGovern-Dole program, is tied to the use of US commodities, which is a great component of this, because what we're trying to do in this program is provide the nutritional content needed for these children around the world that may not be able to get that nutritional content in the country. However, we're also looking at the appropriateness of these commodities that are going into these programs. We want to make sure that they're culturally appropriate so that the kids will actually consume this product. So there's a process that we go through, and currently we have around 60 commodities approved on our list for use. And this is a combined effort with the U.S. Department of Agriculture and also the USAID, the International Agency for International Development. Currently, out of those 60, our programs are using maybe around 45, 46 of those approved commodities, but they do have those choices to make sure that they are picking the right commodities for their targeted population. And this map just kind of shows you where we're getting our supply from, where we're getting our commodities from. So the blue shows you the U.S. suppliers, and then you can see those where also we're using some of the ports around the U.S. to ship our commodities. So once they've been selected, once our programs have been negotiated, then we'll put that food on the boats and go to the selected countries that where our programs will be implemented. So it's a very unique program where it integrates our farmers, our commodities, but also taking into account the benefit that it's getting to the children and communities of these programs. Thank you. Finally, I just want to kind of wrap this up and bring you back to, McGovern-Dole, the international program is not just a school feeding program. McGovern-Dole goes beyond that. We are trying to build sustainable activities and impact communities so that they can take ownership of these programs and continue the benefits that our activities are having while the program is running. So apart from just providing food, we also provide different resources that create different activities. So here, using an example, one of the main things that we're trying to do, that we do, is provide access to water. So we encourage our implementers and we work with them to make sure that we're getting water, not only for drinking or just the water is just, so important for cooking and the hygiene of the children and many other sources, school gardens and what have you. We also established washing stations at school, and this is to promote healthy hygiene habits, which are very important in our schools, and especially for children at a young age, and prevents illnesses and many other things. And finally, this other picture just shows you through McGovern-Dole, we're able to provide funding also for school supplies and materials. And you can see here the kids reading their books and building their reading skills that are with the book supply through our program. So with that, I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you about this wonderful program and hope you enjoy the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Erica, for providing that overview. That was excellent. And hopefully we'll also get an opportunity to hear from Erica during the Q&A session on some of her experiences seeing these projects in the field. So with that, it is my, and I'll just pause a moment. I also just want to say for the speakers, as much as anyone, we're doing very well on time. So thank you very much for keeping within the time. So on our next presenter is the Foreign Agricultural Service, has our own amazing team of Foreign Service officers posted around the world. And I very much welcome Rachel Nelson, who is our Regional Agricultural Counselor with the USDA Foreign Agricultural Service, based in Guatemala City, with regional coverage of Honduras, El Salvador, and Belize. Prior to arriving in Guatemala, Rachel served in Myanmar, Turkey, Japan, and in various positions in FAS headquarters in Washington, DC, and began working with USDA in June 2000. So with that, Rachel, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to hearing about what you're seeing on the ground with Guatemala, with McGovern-Dole in Guatemala.
Thank you very much for that nice introduction. I'll go over some examples today of some successes that we've seen in the McGovern-Dole program in Guatemala. The program has been active since 2003, and right now we have 3 active programs, 4 active programs, which I'll go over in a minute. And you can see from this slide where the red stars are, the 3 main areas where our wonderful implementing partners have active programming: Huehuetenango, Quiché, and Totonicapán. And those are some of the areas with the highest levels of child undernutrition. Next slide, please. So here is a chart showing the active programs and one that just finished, which I left up because I'll talk a little bit more about. But our 3 main implementing partners in Guatemala are Save the Children, Catholic Relief Services, and Global Communities. And so they're active all across those 3 regions that I showed you. And our newest program, run by Global Communities as the lead and Save the Children together, has just been extended to Huehuetenango and Quiché, so they can continue their wonderful work. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk about the three programs and not read you everything on the slide, but just talk about, highlight some of the successes. And a lot of the programs in the 3 regions are similar because they coordinate very well together. So I won't read everything, but I'll point out some of the things that are most impressive. A lot of the programs, they have bilingual education. So they teach in Spanish as well as a local indigenous language, 1 or even 2 in some cases. And that's had a really good outcomes. Instead of just teaching the children to read in Spanish, they're learning in their local language or between the 2. And so one aspect that we've seen very successful are mobile libraries. So this program with Save the Children, they call Learning for Life, has done really well with not only providing mobile libraries, but teaching administrators how to use them and how to run them. There's been a big focus, so that's the school supplies and materials aspect. And there's also a large focus on increasing knowledge about nutrition and food safety. So not only teaching the school staff and the PTAs, that's like the parent teacher associations, or in Spanish OPFs, giving them training because they're the ones that often prepare the school meals. And then also handing out kits. So Learning for Life handed out hygiene kits for the children personally, as well as school cleaning kits to the schools to keep the schools safe. And this was especially important, we saw during COVID. Next slide, please. They've worked also on preventative health, reaching out to pregnant mothers that have students in the school. They have introduced deworming medications in the Learning for Life program, and some of their improved attendance results speak for themselves. 91.4% of students attend the schools, and over 43,000 students regularly attend in the schools that have the school meals. We also see a lot of efforts in these schools in improving their infrastructure. You go to the schools and you see they didn't have stoves or places to prepare food, and Learning for Life has helped to either create or rehabilitate the kitchens, the stoves. Food storage is a big issue because we have these commodities in large, bulk bags, and they need to be kept free of pests and things like that. So food storage is something the program builds. Latrines, that's also related to the food safety element. And also they provide, for sustainability purposes, guides for construction and maintenance of those facilities. So those are some of the really great successes. Next slide, please, that we've seen. Learning for Life. We also see, as I said, a focus on keeping kids in school, and they've introduced violence prevention and children's rights, educating the kids and families about their rights to school, even using radio. They've also helped with demonstrating nutrition practices to the parents, and 52% of the students in their program indicate not being hungry during the school day. So that's, maybe not as high as you might expect, but that they were hungrier before. So that's an interesting statistic. Let's go to the next slide, please. One thing that was introduced during COVID were take-home rations. So that's something that all of the implementing partners were able to do, working very closely with the Ministry of Education. And so, and some of that has continued even after classes started, because it was able to feed, some of the parents and people who volunteered and things like that. So I'll talk a little bit more about local purchase models later. So let's go to the next slide. So this is some of the things they've just had an extension, and these are some of the things that they're going to introduce that are new. A big focus on increasing the local purchase model, which also provides income for the local farmers. Biofortified corn and eggs, that's something that they're introducing, which will increase the impact of their work. They're introducing savings and loans, or they will introduce savings and loan for children and adults. And they're distributing radios, because that's something that they've learned has been an effective way to reach out to kids. Not everybody has internet, so radio is one way they've been able to continue, whether there's announcements or after school programs, or if there's natural disasters. Next slide, please. So one of the other implementing partners, Save the Children, their program is called Lens. And again, around 40,000 students that they're supporting in their program, and 367 schools, and they're primarily active in Quiche. Next slide, please. They do a lot of the similar things. One of the overall successes that we've seen, which I'll talk about later, is that these groups coordinate very well with each other. And they've coordinated so well, they've convinced the government, they helped convince the government of Guatemala to implement its own funded national school feeding program. And so that program, introduced in 2017, has helped us to make this permanent and sustainable. And it's got a permanent budget, and the budget actually has been increased steadily since the bill was introduced. So now all students get school meals, and it's funded by the government. So this is a program in general that we see, we expect to be able to phase out because of the success of having the National School Feeding Program. But I think it all started from our program, pushing it and helping them learn how to do it, and setting up these institutions and these tools, which I'll show you in a bit. Let's go to the next slide, please. Strengthening literacy. They've established in Quiche literacy tables. So these are more like community groups that meet and talk about all the challenges and the best practices. And they're actually using 3 languages: Spanish, Ixil, and Quiche. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So they also deal with installing sinks and hand washing, and delivery of take-home rations. Let's go to the next slide. They've done a lot to train Ministry of Education staff, Ministry of Education local staff, and municipal staffs. The third active program is Global Communities, another over 40,000 students in 294 schools in Huehuetenango. Next slide, please. They've done a lot with, they teach and hand out books. They've trained Mineduc as Ministry of Education. They work in Spanish and local language mom. 80% of the students regularly attend school. We did see a drop off during COVID, but they're working really hard to get kids back in school now. They've distributed eco filters. That's been a real success of their program to provide filtering of water. Next slide, please. Let's go to the next slide. But that last one, they talked a lot about school gardens and greenhouses. So the overall achievements, because I'm running out of time, I'll be fast now. Switch into New Yorker speed. The assessment and validation of menus was a big success, because when you start buying from local farmers, you need to provide the farmers with a plan so they know what to grow. So we, our implementing partners worked with the Ministry of Education to come up with menus and set menus that the schools would select and tell the farmers about, so the farmers knew. And we helped the PTAs figure out what products they would need for those menus. So the introduction of the planned menus helped improve nutrition, but also helped the kids to, the farmers in the local communities to know what to plant. Next slide, please. The local regional procurement program, which just ended in the last year, was a huge success, and it helped to set up training for the local farmers and really made an impact on the ability of the kids to have not just commodities, but fresh products such as eggs and vegetables and fruits. Next slide, please. Nuestra Cosecha was what the local regional procurement was called, and all three implementing partners helped introduce this. Next slide. They introduced a lot of manuals and training tools, which we've passed on to the Ministry of Education, we've passed on to the Ministry of Agriculture, and they're now using a lot of the tools and models. And other donors in other countries later, once the school feeding program was implemented, came in and had ideas about helping. But in the end, they evaluated all the offers and decided that what we were providing was so well done that a lot of they were able to really use those, and they needed less support from the donors, or were able to focus them in areas that they hadn't done or regions we weren't in. So next slide, please. Okay, keep going. I think I already talked about that. Accountability. One of the big things we did was we helped them introduce accountability, giving receipts for the food, and not just for the food we donated, but for their own national school feeding program, and how to do monitoring and evaluation. Also, we did a lot on quality control, helping the schools know how to tell if the food they received was safe. We did a lot on good agricultural practices with farmers. We helped create fairs to link the farmers with the schools so that the business was done in a transparent way. So in countries where, you might, corruption could cause some of the program to fail or to not be as effective as it could be, we focused a lot, our implementing partners focused a lot on transparency, accountability, helping the farmers deal with registration, which could have been a barrier previously, but we helped them overcome that barrier so that they could participate. All right, I think that's the end of my presentation. We can end it there, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Appreciate especially our foreign service officers, not just cover McGovern-Dole, but cover a vast portfolio of USDA and foreign agricultural service priorities in the region. So really appreciate that in-depth presentation, and hopefully we'll have time to hear from you later during the Q&A session. With that, I'm very happy to hand over to the team the groups we could not do this without, and that is our implementing partners. And so pleased that Mars and Fauzi could join us from Global Communities. Global Communities has been a partner with the McGovern-Dole program since even before the program's founding, when it was a pilot in the early 2000s. So Mazen is a Senior Director of Food, Economic and Climate Security with Global Communities. And that technical unit designs and supports the organization's portfolio of USDA-supported McGovern-Dole International Food Education and Child Nutrition Program. As noted, Global Communities has partnered with USDA to implement 21 school feeding projects since 2001, including 18 McGovern-Dole programs and 3 standalone local and regional food aid procurement programs reaching over 2 million students. It's a remarkable achievement, and I will let Mazen take over. Mazen, please let me know if you would like to take control of the screen or if you'd like me to proceed with the slides for you.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. I'm going to try and take over control of the screen. Let me go to share screen and see if that will work. And then we will, let's see. Okay, try this again. Bear with me for just 1 second, please. There we go. All right, is that clearly visible to everyone?
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect, great. Well, first, let me thank you and thank FAS USDA, not only for the over 20 years of partnership we've had, but also giving global communities and PCI, as we're now one organization, the opportunity to share the perspective of integrated school feeding from an implementer's point of view. I'm proud to be here on behalf of the organization, somewhat as an ambassador, as you will, of the technical team, which are so dedicated to designing and learning in partnership with USDA about these programs and how to ever increase their effectiveness, and also very much so the highly dedicated field teams, which really do the work and make these things possible. So I'd like to start off just taking a quick look at the evolution of school feeding programs with USDA. I think it's very important because, you know, in 2000 through 2002, they started off as the Global Food for Education initiative, which was really a pilot to see, can this work be done, and can it be done effectively? And PCI, now Global Communities at the time, was able to partner with USDA in exploring this in Bolivia with considerable success, and that then moved the programs over to the current day McGovern-Dole International Food for Education and Child Nutrition Programming, which are much more holistic in nature. There is a lot more to a McGovern-Dole program than a warm meal. And this iconography that you see on this particular slide highlights the multitude of areas in which these programs work. They're exceptionally comprehensive, and they're complex, but that complexity is root for sustainable and change and effectiveness. In terms of Global Communities history, as noted, we started off way back in 2002 in Bolivia, and then moved into Nicaragua, Guatemala, Tanzania, and most recently Madagascar. So quite a rich tapestry of experiences. If we're to look globally at what we've accomplished to date and what we will be through the existing programs and partnerships, there's well over 500,000 students as individual beneficiaries. And as noted earlier, when you sum up those who roll in and roll out through graduation processes, it actually goes into the 2 million zone. Schools over 2,000, and take a look at the U.S. donated commodities, you know, over 16,000 metric tons from the American farmers reaching children in some of the most hard hit and food insecure parts of the world where we work. I wanted to focus on the profound importance of community and government engagement in successful and sustainable school feeding program and improved literacy, health, and nutrition. It's really these partnerships that are at the core of effective school feeding, and the capacity development and developing a sense of ownership of them is critical at all levels. It can't only be at the school, it can't only be at the regional government, it can't only be at the national government. It has to span household all the way up into the national ministries at the highest level in order to be owned and sustainable. I thought it would be fun to take a look a little bit at some of the own words from people who have participated successfully in the McGovern-Dole programs. And as you can see, a community member mentions here, the starting point was when we, global community, summoned us and organized ourselves into this community support group for the schools. And from there, they began to develop a plan. This visioning process with this direct stakeholders of a school, that is the parents, the administrators, and the regional government, is extremely important in laying the foundation for everything that will come. And then step by step through a process, we empower people and facilitate their ability to take over the program, to effectively phase us out from it. And this is a really important thing as we move into the facilitation phase of a McGovern-Dole school feeding program. And ultimately, you do reach a point when you're successful where the community and their regional governments, with support from the national government, become the guarantors of this process, of this program. And it's at that point where we start seeing what I would refer to as durable sustainability. So we'll take a quick look at Tanzania. The reason for choosing Tanzania are multifold. One of the things to note is that this is a long-running program. It originally started in 2011 as a much simpler and more classic approach to programming, which was the model at the time, and has since evolved into one which is highly integrated and has successfully helped with other partners and government cooperation, established the first national school feeding guidelines for the country, which now enables a national level platform of legislation to bring in budgetary flows for the government to start actively supporting and implementing their own school feeding work. So over time, quite a large number of schools, as you can see from the statistics, a lot of direct beneficiaries and meals. But some of the key learnings that I really wanted to share with you, and I think these are very important, is that sustainable school feeding needs to be co-owned. It needs to be a co-owned partnership between the communities and their local and national governments. It can't be only at the community level. It can't only be at the government level for them to succeed. In the case of Tanzania, there were key national level milestones that the program supported reaching, which are now laying the foundation for a sustainable future. School feeding guidelines were developed, as mentioned, and also a national school health program guide and manual. So now we are able to get the standards, if you will, for some of the most important elements in effective school feeding. Another thing that was pivotal in this program was the use of the LRP approach for sustained school feeding program. It enabled households to raise their production level, to help contribute to school feeding voluntarily. It also brought in the private sector businesses to achieve the supply lines needed for improved support of improved input materials, and also the linkages with the ag extension to help those farmers succeed. So there were multiple level benefits on that one. There's some highlights of the program. This deck will be shared with everyone, so I won't spend time on those. But the last thing I wanted to talk about is that sustainable school feeding is really a journey. It's a highly integrated and complex process. If you look at the pie chart on the side, you will see all of the major elements and actors involved in achieving sustainable school feeding. But I really want to stress that, you have to come in and work at the highest level with the national governments and at the household level where those students live, and move them into their schools and create a conducive environment for learning and sustainable school feeding programs so that we can back away from the programs successfully and not rely solely on households to support the meals. To transfer the burden of feeding a child from the household to the school is not effective. We do need those financial flows from the government to support school feeding as well. It's that convergence where the success lies. So thank you very much for your time. And again, it was such a pleasure to share this experience with you.
Thank you so much, Mazen. And I can't believe we're on time. Thank you so much. It's again, such a rich experience with the McGovern-Dole program partnerships. Of course, Global Communities, formerly PCI, has been a key partner for many years, but we have the pleasure of having a wide range of organizations that partner, and further, they work very closely with host governments. And also, a lot of these projects tend to be large in scale and would not be possible without a network of subrecipients and local organizations. So really, huge commend to those on the line, especially those out in the field making these projects happen. So with that, I'd be very happy to move to the Q&A section, and I do welcome all of our panelists. If you want to put on your camera and join us. I have one question in the chat from our long-term friend of McGovern-Dole, Professor Don Bundy, who thanks us for the very clear summary of the extraordinary contribution that the McGovern-Dole program makes globally. The Research Consortium for School Health and Nutrition often gets queries about the work of USDA and McGovern-Dole. It would be really useful to be able to redirect interested folks to this collection. Do you plan to make it available? So yes, thank you very much, Don. So I'm happy to see this session being recorded. We can make the slide deck available, and also did not include in this presentation, but we do have an shared email account with ppdead@usda.gov. We try to make ourselves as available as possible. As Erica noted, we tend to put out our annual notice of funding opportunity early in the calendar year. And that's a good item to keep abridged of, and we usually follow that with a public meeting. So thank you very much for that interest, and we hope to make ourselves available as possible. And so also with that, if there are any other questions, please put them into the chat. But in the time remaining, I really welcome all of the panelists. One of the items that McGovern-Dole has evolved over the years and has changed is going from 1 year, 2 year programs, kind of short duration programs. Now in 2022, all of our programs were 5-year programs. And a lot of them are multi-cycle, working in the same schools for years. Can you maybe talk about, maybe we'll start off with you, Mazen, on what are the benefits? Are there any drawbacks to this multi-year, multi-cycle donor funding?
Thanks, Lindsay. And it's a really, really important question. You know, it's been hugely beneficial to the long-term success of the programs to have them both multi-year and multi-cycles. The reason being is that this is a stepped process. It doesn't happen quickly. And this convergence approach where we have to work at the family level to get those kids into school. We have to work at the schools to get them strengthened to deliver high quality education. The volunteerism, the ownership that happens there, the regional government capacity building to support their schools, and then the national government capacity, not only to create legislation, but to put their money behind it, to be blunt about it. It does not happen quickly. I don't know of that many programs which work at so many different levels, and change is possible. Change is happening. We are seeing the results, but we also know to do it and do it durably, it does take time.
Thank you, Mazen. Erica, Rachel, would you like to weigh in also?
Sure. You know, from my perspective as an analyst and just being on the donor side, I think it has been very beneficial to have this multi-year programs going on. As you know, we saw the case of Guatemala. You know, we've been there for a long time and we're having successes. We've got the government involved, but in terms of just collecting data and seeing really the benefits that go on, having 5 years to collect that data is more useful. You see more of the benefits, more of the changes throughout those years than just having 1 year. It's very difficult to assess the programs that way. So yeah, very beneficial to have them multiple years. as Mason said, these programs take a long time to get everybody integrated and involved. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Erica. So we are coming to the end of our session. I do see a comment in the question from our other McGovern-Dole implementer, Nascent Solutions. Thank you, Dr. Wami, for your comments as well. I do just want to wrap up with a few closing thoughts and really to end on the celebration of this 20 years of McGovern-Dole and looking forward to the future. So I may just make it a little fun, a little anecdotal, but just see if there's anyone from the field who wants to just, any of the panelists who want to share any of their experience of kind of being in the field and seeing the transformative impact that a school meal can have on a child, on a community in these countries. So Rachel, to put you on the spot, do you want to maybe go first? I know you've maybe got the opportunity to visit the field in Guatemala.
Yes, I'll never forget the first time after reading about McGovern-Dole for so many years and seeing all of these presentations and things on paper, actually going to a school and seeing the children and seeing the environment that they learn in. Every single bit of these programs makes a huge difference to them. And to see the impact of a stove where they didn't have one before, or just to see the food, the nutritious meals that they're given, to see the educational materials and to see the kids using those books that USDA had a part in providing. It really is impactful to each of these kids. And when you go out into the field and see them and see the conditions in which they're living and trying to learn, every bit of the program makes a huge difference in their lives. And so I can definitely vouch for that. Very impactful.
Thank you, Rachel. Erica, Mazen, please, one and the other, and then take us home. Thank you.
Erica, would you like to go?
Sure. Well, I have so many stories. I'm having a hard time picking one, but I would say, in terms of just, as I mentioned, beyond the school feeding that we do, we also do hygiene and things like that. And I remember visiting this one project for PCI in Bolivia. And, this areas where the program is taking place is really high up in the mountains in the mine areas, and it's very cold. And so, the kids had no, they were working on hygiene. So, most of the kids, they have having a runny nose and just going with their hands. And PCI was teaching them, how to properly clean their nose. And also, I was amazed that one of the children was telling me they had never seen a mirror before. And this is the one time, the one program that brought in a mirror and toothbrushes, and they were teaching the kids dental hygiene as well. So very impressive that it went beyond, just the school feeding part was great, but I was amazed too that, we sometimes don't think about those things that were also impacting, because hygiene has a lot of to do with your overall health. So very happy to have seen that it was an integrative program in that respect. So, and the community was very happy about it too. So thanks.
From my side, it's interesting. When you go into a school before a McGovern-Dole program, you go into it during a McGovern-Dole program, the comparison is, well, you can't compare. It's just that remarkable. And while we do see the clear visuals of progress, such as improved infrastructure, meals, and things like that, the takeaway from me is the vibrancy that I see in those children as they're learning, as they're energized, as they're motivated, and the pride that I see in the teachers, the administrators, and the parents, who are the backbone of the volunteerism, which make the programs succeed. And when I see that, I feel there's a better future, especially for those children. And that is my takeaway. And that's the thing that gets us through the hard times when we face our challenges, as we always do.
I you know what? I think that's the perfect note to end on. I just want to take a moment to thank all of our panelists, all of those audience participants who've joined us on the line. See some familiar names, some familiar faces, and hopefully we've also reached some new people through this presentation. So 20 more years. Thank you everyone so much, and thank you to the School Meals Coalition Week for allowing us to present at the session. Have a wonderful weekend, and let's keep going.